Hey there. As a brief forward, this is a pretty different video from what I've done previously on this channel, but it's the most fitting spot for it, and hopefully some people will find it enlightening and helpful. To add some context, all the video clips and images were taken with my iPhone 15 Pro, and the videos were filmed in the spatial video format, which basically just means you can watch it in a VR headset and it'll have some depth. Those will be at the end. I recently was in New York City for Halloween, and coincidentally, Shiftall, the makers of a variety of VR hardware, were also in town, giving demos for their upcoming MeganeX Superlight headset. So I hopped right in line and went down to check out the demos on the day of, and was actually the very first person in New York City to try out the headset, which honestly not that big of a distinction, and also might have hurt my experience a bit, but hey, I get brownie points for doing it, so I guess I'll take it. In addition to the MeganeX, Shiftall was also showing off two other devices. The Mew Talk 2, which is just as off-putting as its predecessor, but this time is a bit more compact and also comes with additional fit options, and the Flip VR controller. Personally, I'm actually pretty interested in the Flip VR as a Steam VR controller that you can very quickly put away when you need to without having to search around for where your table is to put down your controller. It's a real issue that they've done a pretty decent job of fixing with the flip mechanism, which feels good and is fairly durable. The rest of the controller is serviceable, I guess. The buttons felt a little mushy and the triggers seemed to be really light, and the actual controller part didn't really sit well in my hand because it was so small. It might be because I'm more used to the Quest 3 controllers, which sit more inside your grip, or because the controller part feels like it's designed for a much smaller hand than mine. Here's a quick size comparison with a Quest 3 controller and an index knuckle. You can kind of see how it's significantly smaller by how my thumb sits. I'm not going to dwell on the accessories anymore since they're not the focus of the video, but I have to say I am at least moderately interested in picking the controllers up, since they are $400 for a pair, which is a lot, but it's pretty comparable to the other options like the Vive Knuckles. Now, let's talk about the MeganeX Superlight. You can look up the specs on the website, so I won't talk about those too much. My demo slot was 15 minutes, and to do the tests, I visited the VR chat world Exoplanet Journey by Nico. The CEO was there who set the demo up and preloaded VR chat, so I picked that world as an option with a pretty wide variety of colors, brightness, and details. The people behind me asked to try out different things for their demos, which is something I might have tried if I hadn't been going first, but it's fine. I got what I needed mostly. The three things I went into the demo looking for were comfort, color, and clarity. For comfort, the MeganeX is honestly pretty good. I have a fairly high tolerance for discomfort while in VR, but after just a minute or two I had basically entered the zone, and wasn't feeling the headset on my face anymore. Part of that is because the headset comes with two adjustments to fit the different faces, that being a tilt adjustment and a slide adjustment. The slide is more standard with a lot of headsets like the PSVR 2. It just moves the whole thing forward and back to accommodate for longer faces. The tilt is not the physical pass-through they mentioned where the headset flips upward, but it's more like a way to get a better light seal on the gasket or do a little bit of fine adjustment, since you can't really move the headset up and down a whole lot with the strap design they used, and the headset contact point is basically supposed to be right on your forehead. The whole setup is very secure though. I tried to whip my head back and forth a lot and it remained pretty secure the whole time. The fit is not totally perfect though. For starters, the face gasket they were using is a silicone or rubber, kind of similar to the one on the PSVR 2. It's soft, so it can conform to any face, but it also is a bit suffocating. After 15 minutes, I wasn't feeling the headset, but I was feeling the warm air right on my eyes, and after about 30 minutes, I probably would have been sweating just in the headset. The demo unit also had a few things they still needed to iron out, such as some defects in the clip that attaches the display to the strap, which caused it to be loose, and when I moved my head around, the thing would kind of wiggle a little bit. And the forehead pad was a bit too rigid, which meant that when I took it off, it kind of left a pattern on my skin. The CEO actually pointed that out directly when I took it off. The gasket also had some light leak, both due to the defect, which meant it didn't sit perfectly on my face, like without moving, and I think some of the light was actually leaking directly through the material, which caused a little bit of issues with the colors and brightness. Speaking of colors, let's move on to that now. For colors, I was basically looking at the quality of the OLED panels by swapping between a few different settings in the VR chat world. One thing I noticed is that while the colors definitely did pop when looking at some of the more colorful world settings, everything wasn't more vibrant or contrasty compared to, let's say, my PSVR 2. It's possible that's due to the previously mentioned light leak, my own world choice, some technical issue with the demo model or the panels they're using, or even just poor memory on my part while I'm writing this. But it definitely didn't immediately blow me away. For now, let's just say that they were fairly equivalent to the PSVR 2 in terms of color, just without as much Mura. I'm sure that the real tech reviewers will be arguing about that for weeks once they get their own units. I believe the CEO also mentioned that the HDR was not implemented yet, so that may have been part of it, but we'll have to see once the headset actually launches. Now let's talk about the big one, and the hardest thing to really measure and qualify: the clarity. So this is a bit hard to talk about for 3 reasons. First, I have terrible eyesight. Like, I'm basically blind as a bat without my glasses. I can't see things clearly that are a foot in front of my face. Luckily, the MeganeX has diopter settings for both eyes that go all the way down to -7, so I was actually able to use it without my glasses. But because the whole demo was on a timer, not an actual timer, but people were in line behind me, I wasn't able to dial in the settings perfectly to make everything super crystal clear. I just kind of scrolled it all the way down and just did what I could with what I had. Second, the MeganeX has adjustable IPD, which is controlled by software that tells the built-in motors what to move to. So it doesn't have a little scroll wheel like, say, the Quest 3, and you can't adjust the things directly like the Quest 2. However, I think they forgot to set my IPD properly when I ran through the demo, so I wasn't perfectly in the sweet spot. Being the first one in line means I get all the problems too, It was still perfectly usable, but it may have also caused my experience to be degraded a bit because I wasn't in the absolute perfect position where everything is lined up exactly as it should be, which also might have led into the problems I had focusing my view. Third, the computer they were using was maybe not as beefy as it needed to be for the demo. It was a mini ITX build, and I think the CEO mentioned it had a 4070 running in it, which is a pretty good card, but it's not really good enough for dual 4K displays like this. With those 3 issues combined, my takeaway on the clarity of the headset was, it's okay. It's definitely more crisp and clear than my PSVR 2, even with the lack of proper focus, but when I checked the world with my Quest 3 when I got home, it wasn't leaps and bounds ahead of that in terms of clarity. It's definitely the kind of thing that I would need to do in a proper second look, in a more curated experience with less of a time restriction. As a test, I tried to stand back a bit and read text on a menu at a distance. This video is basically showing what I was looking at, and this image is what the in-game camera would see, though keep in mind this is all being affected heavily by YouTube compression and my own edits. I didn't want to get my camera too close in case I scratched something expensive, but you can get a general idea for how the smaller details look. They're not easily legible, but they are visible even at this distance, which is better than I can say for my PSVR 2 or some of my other headsets. Just to finish things off, there's a couple other things I'm just going to note down that I wasn't looking for but might be helpful, and other people can hopefully check my claims in the future. The Pancake lenses aren't as good as the Quest 3 lenses, but they're better than some of the other Pancakes I've used. And I don't have an issue with halos like I see in my XR Elite, for example. The MeganeX also does have an issue with barrel distortion that I noticed, which might have played into the problems with visual clarity I was having. The sweet spot on the lenses, though, was thankfully fairly large, or at least large enough for me to be able to see things with reasonable clarity, even with everything stacked against me. The FOV I noticed was perfectly adequate. I was estimating it at about the same as the Quest 3, but that may have been slightly off, since my Quest 3 has a somewhat reduced field of view because I wear glasses, while the MeganeX gets to sit right in front of my eyes. Also, when I was whipping my head back and forth to test the fit, I was also checking to see if the image would smear like the Apple Vision Pro does. If you've ever worn an Apple Vision Pro, you'll know that if you move your head a little too fast, the whole image just smears for a second. I didn't notice any of that with the MeganeX, but that may have also been due to the scenes I was in. So things with a lot of pinpoints did not get smeared, or maybe some of the colors just meshed into each other so I didn't notice. So with all that said, would I personally recommend this headset for the asking price of $18.99 as a not real tech reviewer person? Unfortunately, I can't really say that I would, at least right now. Shiftall has done an incredible job of making the headset as light and compact as possible, while still including some upgrades over the next closest competitor, the big screen beyond. However, while they do still have a few months before their projected launch date, the fact that they still have quality issues and defects, things to redesign, and missing features like HDR and compatibility with AMD graphics cards means that I think the headset is going to get pushed back at least a few months. On top of that, the improvements aren't as huge of a jump as you might want for the price difference. So why should you buy the headset? Well, right now, assuming all the issues get fixed, this would be the best headset on the market, minus the whole AMD compatibility thing. 4K per eye resolution, pancake lens clarity, micro OLED screens, and a small form factor exist as separate attributes in a multitude of different headsets that are all much cheaper than the MeganeX. However, all those attributes combined into a single package only exists in two headsets: the MeganeX and the Immersed Visor. This is basically what the future standard of VR headsets will be, available today for pre-purchase. The problem is that importing the future of VR into your gaming space has a pretty hefty import tax in the form of high production costs, which not many people are willing and able to pay. Anyway, that's all I've got. I'm not a tech reviewer, and most of my comments are based on me running comparisons against things I saw a few days ago. All this video is meant to do is give you some context on what you might expect from the headset in the future, temper some expectations a bit, and maybe give someone an idea of what they should be looking for if demos happen again in the future. If you do have any follow-up comments or questions, please leave them in the comments down below, so maybe it's something I missed, maybe it's something that you think is wrong that somebody else has clarified on. Let me know. I love to be able to fix issues. Thanks for watching. Go play something fun.